Hey, when you want to invest in multifamily apartments, the most important thing is not to make money. It's really not to lose money, all right? And the best way to lose money is to make sure you're making sound investments. And one of the things you have to do, quite frankly, is make sure a deal is a deal. But today, we're talking about something even more basic. It's avoiding the folks who have no intention of helping you make money. Instead, they are trying to scheme and scam their way to the top, and they are looking at you as their next victim. So today we're going to be talking about how you can avoid scams as a multifamily apartment investor. Let's jump into it. Hey, my name is John Casmon. I'm a multifamily investor, and I'm also the host of the Multifamily Insights Podcast. Now, I've been investing in apartments for over a dozen years, and I've invested with other busy professionals on over $150 million worth of apartments. And today we're going to talk about some of the key things you want to watch out for, specifically when it comes to folks who have no intentions of helping you succeed, and they just want to scheme and scam. Scammers are everywhere, all right? There are people out there from, the beginning of time. Anytime there's a way to make money, there's going to be somebody who sees the shortcut as scamming you out of yours. So you have to be on the watch out for them. It doesn't matter the industry, whether it's real estate, cryptocurrency, anything else that's out there, sports. There's going to be somebody who is trying to scam, and you have to have your radar up to avoid these scammers. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've seen as an investor myself, things that I've seen some of my clients experience, friends, other folks in the industry, and I want to give you the information you need to know as an apartment investor, because these scammers are really sophisticated and they're smart, they're savvy, they spend a lot of energy and effort thinking of ways to get you separated from your money, and it's really important for you to understand what to look for, the questions you need to be asking, and how to protect yourself. So let's jump into it. The first thing I want to do is talk about kind of groups of scammers, right? Because they come in different shapes and sizes, and not all of them have terrible intentions to take your money, right? But many of them are looking to run a play where they're focused on themselves first and foremost. So not all scams are the same, but for the intent and purposes of our conversation, I want to talk about what I think are real scams, meaning they are truly focused on taking your money with no intention of either delivering on that, or they don't have the ability to give you the product or whatever it is in return that you're seeking. All right. So that's my definition of a scam. Deals go bad all the time. Stuff happens in real estate. Sometimes they're bad operators, bad business people. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real legit scams where people from the jump, they know that they have no intentions of delivering on the product or the service that they're trying to provide, and they're only doing this for money. So with that said, I'm not going to talk about anything about a bad deal or stuff like that. I'm just talking scams. All right, scam number one, wholesalers. So when it comes to wholesalers, there are a lot of great wholesalers, right? Particularly in the single family space. People who go out there, they've got marketing lists, they find these off-market deals, they are able to come to potential end buyers. They have an agreement where they're going to make their money. Maybe it's an assignment fee. Maybe they get paid out at closing. Maybe they stay in at the deal. But either way, they have a structure where they're going to make money. And I think they're great in the single family space, okay? Lots of great wholesalers are out there. However, in my experience, when it comes to apartments, particularly, let's call it 12 units and up, wholesalers do not have a great track record in my mind, because a lot of times what wholesalers do, and whether it's intentional or not, they don't have the listing agreement or a purchase contract with those sellers or with those owners. Okay. Now some do. So if you do it the right way, I'm not talking about you guys. What I'm talking about are the people who take someone else's listing and they market it as their own. Like they have it under contract and they are selling you the contract or signing you the contract for this deal, a deal that they have. I coach a number of investors. I actually help a couple different people when it comes to even their own coaching program. And I can't tell you the number of people who have brought me a deal that they got from a wholesaler, and they require proof of funds. They require, a bio and all this other stuff before they will even give you financials. Okay. They won't even give you anything. They got to have all this documentation. That's a huge red flag for me, because typically in commercial multifamily investing, most of the time that information is readily available. Now, not all the time. Okay. It depends on the deal. Smaller deals, maybe not so much. But if you're looking at 100+ unit deals, Typically that stuff is on a portal somewhere. You just give them your contact information and it's available for download, right? You sign a confidentiality agreement and it's there. So when a wholesaler is asking you for proof of funds, bank account information, bank account statements, they're doing all this before they even send you a rent roll. That's a huge red flag. And it tells me that they may not actually have this deal control. Now, maybe they do, but they should understand how commercial multifamily works. And that is typically not the case. So when I see things like that, my antenna goes up. Now I want to know, do they actually control the deal? And a number of my clients, they couldn't get that information. Okay, why is the seller selling? They don't know because they're not talking to the seller. They found this listing maybe from a broker or on a broker's website, and now they're turning around and pretending like it's their listing, right? Now, some of them may be truthful and direct to say, hey, no, I came across this. But the truth is, they do not have the rights to market that listing as their own. They do not have a contract on that property to buy it themselves where they can assign it. So they have no legal ability to be marketing this deal. So that's why I say it's a scam, because they are taking someone else's listing and pretending that it's a deal that they had the ability to market to other buyers. And that's not the case. And they're just simply marking it up. So to give you an example, let's say someone has an apartment building listed for $1 million, right? So let's call it ABC brokerage firm. They're listing an apartment building for $1 million. A wholesaler may get that and then turn around and list that for $1.1 million, right, to their network. And maybe they think that that property is really worth 1.2 or $1.3 million. So it's a situation where everyone can win. But the scam here is that they don't have the authority to list that property to their network. So if I am a buyer, I could go and should go, and the contract for that broker is that they are marketing that property on behalf of the seller, and they are the only person who is legally able to do that. So when that wholesaler comes in and tries to market it, that's where the scam kicks in. So you want to watch out for that. I've never seen a deal actually close in that situation. I'm not saying that if you are a wholesaler and you legitimately lock up that property for 1.1, that you can't turn around and sell it for 1.3 or assign it, that is fine. But the key here is you've got to actually, lock up that deal and actually get some rights to turn around and do whatever it is you're going to do to that property. So that's a scam you got to watch out for. A lot of them don't care, particularly if they're asking you for proof of funds and they wouldn't be paid out, up front, and they're going to step out and let you negotiate. They've already gotten their money. It could get really messy because maybe that selling broker doesn't know the contract that you have. It can just be bad. So you want to make sure you understand what's going on. It could blow the deal. And if you've already paid out that wholesaler, it can get really ugly for you and you can lose money. So make sure you watch out for those deals, particularly from wholesalers, if they do not have a contract on that deal and they have the authority and they have the approval to go out there and assign that contract. So watch out for wholesalers. All right, so next, I want to talk about contractors. So with contractors, there's a lot of different things that come into play. So one, the biggest thing is, and you just got to understand, there's a lot of money, a lot of moving parts. Contractors are generally good at the construction. They can do the job. Typically not that great at the business administrative stuff. Okay. So you have to understand, I don't think a lot of it is a scam, but contractors can get a bad reputation for maybe not managing a budget as effectively, managing timelines as effectively, but that is not a scam thing. That's just, business operations, and maybe they're not great business people in general, right? Some are, but some maybe not, especially if you're working in apartment investing or you're looking for those contractors who work with investors. Those budgets and margins get a little tight. So it's a little harder to find those folks who are really, really stellar at working with investors. So here's what I mean when I talk about a scam with contractors. Because those budgets get a little tight and the margins get a little compressed, it can be hard for them to make money. And they can start to look at other ways to increase things, right? So one, when we talk about a scam, to me, any kind of theft is a scam. That could be small scams, right? Where someone is, buying product for one job, but really it's for another job, or maybe it's for their own use. Maybe buying materials or buying tools and equipment that is for themselves, but they're billing it to a client. So those are smaller scams, but still, still a little bit of scam, still not, completely ethical. The bigger scam for me, though, is when they're outright stealing from you. Could be taking money from one job, a draw payment, and spending it elsewhere, not spending it on your property. I had a property, this was not an apartment, this was a house flipping, or house flip that we were working on. And we had a developer we were partnering with, and we very quickly realized this was a house of cards. He would take draws from one project and use those funds to push another, whatever the next project he had, which needed a draw, he would use that to invest in that project. And then once that project got to the place where it can do a draw, he'd take that funds and then identify the next project. And it was a house of cards where he just kept trying to get to the next draw. And instead of focusing those funds for that project, he commingled everything, and it got super messy and it fell completely apart. And all those investors were left picking up the pieces. So that's one of the things I always look out for is, hey, the money that I'm giving should go to the projects that I'm in, not for other projects, not to cover your general payroll, but I should be paying for my project, not for how you operate and run your business. So that's a huge thing you got to look out for with contractors. The other thing, though, and the more scary thing, is you're giving them a lot of money and you're giving them a lot of trust that they are paying all the right people. So a general contractor is usually hiring the plumbers, HVAC technicians, electricians, subcontractors, any carpenters doing any masonry work. So they are the ones who are typically handling all of the payments to those individuals. And I will tell you, I had a property in Norwood. It was a 28-unit building. And I remember getting a call on a Friday from the roofer. And the roofer called me very calm, very serious, very direct. And all he said was, hey, I'm such and such from this company. We've been doing work on your property on this street. We have not been paid. We have requested payment multiple times. If I don't have the money on Monday, I'm putting a lien on your property. Now I'm on the phone and I'm completely perplexed because I paid this guy over a week ago, right? So I'm sitting there like, what do you mean? I've already paid. He's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm telling you, I haven't been paid. So after talking to him a little bit, I say, you know what? Let me call a general contractor. We'll figure this thing out. I call the general contractor. He says, oh, that's crazy. I don't know what happened. Like, of course he's been paid. Well, let me see what happened. Maybe something happened with the check. So I say, okay, why don't you look into it? Call me about the end of the day. I don't hear back from this guy. So the next day I call the contractor back. Now it's Saturday, right? So I call him back. Now the roofer told me he better have his money by Monday, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm going back and forth and I'm talking to the guy and he starts to hem and haw and all this stuff. And I'm like, uh-oh, there's a big problem here. And sure enough, I came to find out the contractor did not pay the roofer, even though we had paid the contractor. He had pocketed that money and used it for, I don't know, well, something else. But either way, he didn't pay the people he was supposed to pay. And I ended up having to pay this roofer separately because he had been put a lien on our property. And you have to go through a process of proving the work that he did. I knew the process, where I was like, you know what? He did his job. My issues with this general contractor, let me get it squared away. So with general contractors, they can definitely, do a couple of different things there when it comes to managing these payments. So one, they could inflate invoices, right? They could, have a plumber maybe bill them $500, but they're billing you $700. Okay. Now, again, if that management is a part of their agreement or their fee, I don't have an issue with that, right? That's the cost of doing business. They're managing the process. I get that. But if they are misrepresenting the cost and inflating certain things so that they can line their pockets, I think that becomes a problem. Where it's definitely a problem if they're not paying the subs and you've paid them. So one way to avoid this, obviously, do your research, try to get the best people you can, but make sure you get lien waivers from all the subs who work on your projects. So your HVAC guys, your plumbers, your electricians, anybody who has the ability to place a lien on your property, make sure that they sign a lien waiver when you pay them out. That's going to keep you and everyone else, safe. It's going to protect you. You have a document saying that they've been paid. They can't come back to you and say, hey, you actually owe me X amount of dollars. So lien waiver is a great way to protect yourself, both from contractors, but also subcontractors. So after that instance, we made sure that it was in our practice to get lien waivers on any construction projects from both the general contractor and the subcontractors, particularly on any of our flip projects or larger commercial deals. It can save you a lot of hassle, and it helps you avoid those scams from some of those contractors. Hey, before we talk more about how you can get scammed, I do want to let you know that, investing in real estate, particularly when it comes to apartment investing, it requires asking great questions, right? To find those folks who won't scam you. And if you want to learn some of the questions you need to be asking, check out our free guide. It's 7 questions you must ask before investing in apartments. It's available on our website, casmoncapital.com/7questions. And in this, you're going to learn more about market selection, vendor selection, building out your team, analyzing a deal, and asking the tough questions that are going to let you know whether or not this deal has a high floor or a low ceiling. All right. Check this out. It's casmoncapital.com/7questions. Now let's talk about property managers. So when it comes to scams with property managers, first and foremost, understand that most property managers are really good at their jobs. They mean well, they do well. They're the face of the business, right? They're the ones dealing with the tenants. They're the ones handling maintenance requests. So I have a lot of respect for property managers and the role that they play. So we talk about scams. Again, I'm not talking about things that may just go wrong. I'm talking about the intention of scamming the owner. Okay. In that case, we had a property down in Georgia, and we had some money just missing, money missing from the account. Tenants were saying they paid their rent. It's not showing up on the ledger. And as we started digging and asking questions, we realized this was actually a bigger issue. There was a property manager. This was a third-party property management company, pretty big property management company. And as we looked into it more, we came to find out this person had actually been pocketing some of the money. They had been taking some of the tenant deposits. I don't know if it was cash or money orders or what, but they were depositing the money themselves, putting it in their pockets. And essentially they got caught. And when they got caught, they kind of disappeared and ran away from the property. And it became a pretty big issue, as you might imagine. So we kind of had to work through the property management company on that issue since this was their employee. But nonetheless, not a good situation. I've heard stories from a lot of other investors where they had property managers who have embezzled funds. So this is something that you certainly want to look into, right? You don't want to have property managers who are stealing money from you. That could certainly hurt your business. It's not a good look in general, but there's a lot of access that we grant to property managers. Typically, they do have access to certain things like confidential information, tenant information, banking information at times. So this is something where you really want to be careful and you want to protect yourself. So one of the things you can do to protect yourself from this situation is make sure that they are limited in what they can spend, right? So there should be spending limits placed on any accounts that they have access to. There should be approvals necessary for anything over a certain amount of money. And then also you should limit the access they have in general to bank accounts, right? So if they don't really need to access a bank account, they shouldn't. Maybe they just need a credit card, or they just need, something else where they need 2-party authorization. So you certainly want to limit the access that they have. So if they were to try to do something, that damage is limited. When it comes to rental payments and rent collections, we prefer not to do anything cash for this reason, right? If there's cash involved, it just makes it easy for someone to make a poor choice, whether that is in their nature or not. If you're asking people to hold thousands of dollars in cash, poor things just happen, right? There's no accountability, there's no tracking, and it makes it really difficult. So we do not accept cash at any of our properties. Everything must be paid in check or credit card. It's all online. There's a portal system on most of our properties, so we can see everything that's happened. And there's no debate. There's no, oh, I paid you last week, or I paid this person. It's all right there. Either it's in the system, we see it, or you didn't, and it's not like you didn't pay it, right? So there's no confusion. There's nothing there that can be an issue, because tenants will take advantage of that too, right? So you don't want to have any issues where you got a he said, she said. Make sure you don't accept cash. We keep everything electronic. That way we can track it, and there's transparency across the board. Another issue that's come up more recently is there are people, and this isn't the property managers themselves, but these are people impersonating property managers, and they are stealing listings and showing units or, showing properties that they don't actually represent in the effort to get a security deposit from a prospective renter. And one of the things they like to do is show rents that are crazy low, right? So a beautiful 2-bedroom luxury style apartment where the rents are like $500 less than what you would think the rent should be, right? And they're doing that to get people to come in and sign a lease, to put a deposit down because they're excited and they want to lock it up right away. But it may not be a real listing, right? So maybe they've somehow figured out a way to get access to the unit. Maybe it's a property that they do a listing online and they try to accept the security deposits. Maybe they're trying to do a virtual listing, but they're taking information from listings. They're going out there and pretending to be the representative of that property and trying to get people to give them a security deposit of that first month's rent, only to find out that there's actually no unit available. There's no property available to rent and that they've been scammed. So that's not really happened too much from property managers, but you are starting to see more of that's taking place. So it's a scam you got to be on the lookout for, more so from the renter than the owner of the apartment. But on the same note, it's never a good look if someone is doing that, especially if it's your apartment that they're utilizing for the scam. So just be aware that this exists and do your best to mitigate those issues, right? And one of the ways to mitigate that issue is, one, don't give a security deposit unless you understand exactly who it's going to. Make sure you look up and you go to the website to see, who the owner is. You're verifying some of this information, but make sure you understand all of that before you go. And the thing I would say too is, and it's too good to be true, it probably is, right? If you see rents $500 below where it should be before, lower than anything else you're seeing in the marketplace, there's probably a reason. Make sure you're double checking everything. Make sure it's a reputable company. Make sure the information is accurate. Make sure you visit the property during business hours, that you're, talking to the individual, you're getting references. Make sure you're doing all those steps because it's going to make it a little bit easier to protect yourself and to not get scammed. All right, so we talked about kind of property managers and the leasing scams that take place. Well, that's a two-way street. There are definitely residents or prospective tenants who are out there scamming apartment owners, right? And one of the ways they do that, first of all, is lying about who they are, using fake IDs. You can fake employment verification, fake income verification. There's a lot of scams where people, have a friend listed as a referral or as a employer, and you call that friend, oh yeah, Jenny Smith is amazing. Yeah, she's great. Yep, she makes $150,000 a year, right? Whatever it is. So they've got that scam going there where it's like a ring of folks who just help each other out. So you think you got a quality resident, they're moving in and maybe they've got other intentions for your property and they just plan on squatting. In a lot of markets, it is really difficult to evict tenants. So if you get someone who pays the first month's rent and has no intentions of doing anything else, they can try to squeeze 2 or 3 months of free rent out of your unit, and it gets hard. We had a tenant that moved in on one of our properties a few years ago, and they paid the security deposit, first month's rent, and that was the last dollar we saw from them. And it took a few months before we could get them out based on seasonality and some other issues. It just took a minute to get them out. And every state is different. Every market's different with how they handle the eviction process. But by our estimation, this person saved or made, depending on how you want to look at it, thousands of dollars, right? Almost $3,000 by moving in and not paying rent. So it may not be something where someone is taking money from you, but if you have rented a unit that you cannot get back and this person did not have the intention of paying you monthly rent, again, I consider that more of a scam. It's different if something happens to that resident and their situation changes. But in this case, it was a sophisticated scam that they put together, and we got to be better to avoid that moving forward. So now what do? We ask better questions when we're doing our verification process. We make sure that we understand who that resident is, where they work, and we have limitations on the kind of person we take. If you haven't been at your job for 6 months, you're not going to be approved. If you have just moved here, we got a lot more questions we're going to be asking, right, on that verification process. Depending on your job, we're going to ask questions and not just say, hey, the such and such worker. Okay, great. We don't know what they do. How long have they been there? We're going to ask deeper questions to learn more about who they are, but then really to verify that this sounds legit, right? Because there's questions you're probably not going to be able to answer, and we're going to verify that on both sides, right? We're going to look at the application, the applicant, we're going to talk to them, and we've got to verify that information on both sides when we go through that process. So that's something you definitely have to watch out for because, again, if you're in a state where it's difficult to evict, this is one of the things that can be challenging. In the state of Illinois, more specifically in the city of Chicago, a lot of people had issues with security deposits because the laws around security deposits is really clear. And it is just draconian and is really difficult for owners, because if you're not paying the interest on the security deposit, it doesn't matter what happened, you are at default. And, even if that tenant doesn't pay rent, you're going to lose, and you're going to owe this person whatever the security deposit was. I think the penalty is times three of whatever that security deposit was. So a lot of owners stopped taking security deposits years ago. And that's one of those things that could be an issue. And someone who is intentionally scamming may look for that. They may look for people who they think they can take advantage of, who may not pay that, and then find a lawyer who will take this case and help them win. So it's something you definitely have to pay attention to as an apartment owner, because there are going to be people out there looking to scam you. Another thing you'll see is overpayment from tenants, right? Sometimes they may write a check and maybe they overpay the amount. So now you need to go and refund that amount instead of applying it to a future rent. They may ask you to refund it, but this may be an intentional scam, whether they're doing that knowing they wrote a bad check, waiting for you to, send them some of that money back. And then they have this, and maybe you're not notified for 3 to 5 business days that, hey, that check you deposit is actually not a good check. And you're sitting there trying to go and deposit that money back. So this is one that should be able to work around. One, instead of paying that money back in cash, I would apply it to future rent. And two, you simply wait until that money is cleared before you go and you do anything else with it. So that's one that I know some people try to use, but again, a less sophisticated owner, an owner who hasn't had as much experience in this space, they may not understand how to navigate that. So this is something you want to watch out for. Again, it comes back to the intention of that individual and making sure you protect yourself from any kind of scams. All right, I got to hit on this last one, right? So when it comes to multifamily investing, when it comes to apartments, there are a number of folks who are happy to educate you and teach you. And I am one of them, right? So I got to talk on myself, and I got to talk about multifamily coaches. Now, when I talk about scams, I'm giving the same preamble that I gave before, right? Just because it doesn't go according to plan doesn't mean it's a scam. So what do I mean when I say a scam when it comes to multifamily coaches? Well, first and foremost, I'm talking about people who have no intention of delivering what it is they say they're going to deliver. So one, I want to ask, what are you signing up for? All right. And let me tell you a little story. When I was getting serious about apartment investing, I bought a 3-unit building. I just bought an 8-unit building. So I wanted to scale my portfolio, but I kept running out of money and I didn't really know how to scale it. I ended up going to a 3-day seminar, and this 3-day seminar was advertised as having the guys from, I'm not going to say who, but guys from a very popular TV show. Okay. Home renovation TV show. And the way they sell you the 3 days, you go to a 1 day. The 1 day gets you super fired up and excited. And they're like, oh, if you're a fan of this, come out to this event, blah, 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 blah. Right. So I go to that event fully expecting to see these guys. They were not there, but they gave some really good information. They sold the 3 day. So I'm like, yeah, 3 days, $297, right? $297. So my wife and I decided to go to the 3 day, and we're sitting there on day one. I don't know when these guys are coming out, but I'm like, okay, they didn't come to the little free joint, but certainly they're going to come to I don't even know if it was free, actually. I think I paid $97 for that one. Either way, the next one was $297 for a 3 day, right? So we go to this 3 day, and someone comes on stage, not familiar, don't know who this guy is. I assume he's the opening act. Well, as they're talking, very quickly start to realize, oh, these guys are not here. They're not coming out. At no point are they coming out and teaching us how to invest in real estate. So they do a lot of motivational stuff, and it was good. But then they started to really tell you, like, hey, if you want to do this, we're going to show you how to do it. Here's what you're going to learn tomorrow, but you want to sign up for our program. Here's how much it costs, right? It's a huge price tag. And the reason I'm not saying the whole coaching space was a scam, because I know people who have gone through that, who have done great and who have made money. So I'm not saying that, but there's a bait and switch when you tell people something and then you switch it for something else. It's just a practice it's scammy. It's a scam. And I just got to call it out. All right. Because the issue for me was many people, now I know not just myself, went to that event expecting to hear from the speakers that were advertised, the folks they recognized from TV. And when you got there, you didn't get those people. And instead you got a sales pitch. hey, join this. And then you get to see them. And then you get to meet them. And they literally said it the next day. It was like, oh, well, for our tens of thousands of dollars program, you get to meet such and such. And they'll walk you through blah, blah, blah. And that to me was a scam, because if I would have known that, I probably wouldn't have gone, which is why they didn't tell me. Uh, but, you know, I think you got to watch out for those kind of things. So make sure you're going to be getting coached by whoever it is you want to be coached by. A lot of different programs, they, have a face, they have folks who you may recognize and get to know, but that's not the individual you're going to get to talk to. And I get it. It makes sense. There's you got to have some mystery, if you will. But I do think it's important that is clearly communicated. It's all about communication. If it's clearly defined, hey, here's how much involvement this person has, fine, completely good, right? But if they're selling you on an individual, but that's not the individual that you're going to talk to or work with, I think that's an issue, right? Where you got to watch out for that. The other thing is being clear on what outcomes you're going to get. What deliverables can they provide? And recognize this, because I think when people get into coaching, particularly when people think about coaching, a lot of them see it as a scam. And you'll say, oh, it's a scam, it's a scam. The word gets thrown around a lot, right? Part of the issue is the person who's looking for coaching, they got to take the action. They got to show up. They got to be present. They got to take advantage of the resources that are available to them. And I can tell you, many people do not. They sign up because they're excited. They had a, great inspiration on Monday. So they signed up on Tuesday. And by Friday, they don't know if this is really what they want to do. Right. So it's not that it was a scam. It's very similar to like a personal trainer, right? Or a fitness coach. A lot of people are excited when they do it, but then they get into the work and like, oh crap, this is way harder than I thought, right? But it's consistency. You've got to show up. It's the little things every single day. And you hire a trainer to help you stay accountable. And that's the thing a lot of people miss is you have to want this, but you also have to be transparent in what you need to find success. Because most coaching programs, most coaches, they're going to lay out and teach you how to do the thing, but you still got to show up. And you also have to be honest and accountable enough to yourself to recognize what you need to find success. So when it comes to this space, it's being clear on what programs, what coaches, what they provide, and how they can help you achieve success. So what I'm looking for here when it comes to coaches and avoiding any kind of scams is being clear. Who am I going to be talking to? Ask that question. Who is going to be my coach? If it's not someone you know, make sure you get on the phone. Can I talk to them? Get to know them. Make sure this person can actually coach you. There are people who are coaching multifamily who don't know how to buy multifamily. I kid you not, right? There are people who have programs and then they bring on other coaches and these people have never even done a deal. You got to make sure whoever's giving you advice has done deals. They understand how to navigate situations. They understand the terminology. They understand how to navigate, different issues, but more importantly, that they're active today. Because the landscape for multifamily investing is very different than it was 2 years ago, yet alone 10 years ago. So taking advice and getting coaching from someone who hasn't been active for 20 years is not going to help you find success in today's market. So if you're going to get coaching, find someone who's active today. The other thing you want to understand is how do you take risk off the table with this, right? A lot of the programs are not cheap, right? So you're looking at a pretty significant investment. Many of them are 4 figures, if not 5 figures or more. So they can be pretty pricey. So you have to understand, hey, what am I going to get for this? And can I mitigate this investment? Can I mitigate this risk? If you can take risk off the table, it makes it a little bit easier to try it out, right? So is there a trial session? Can you go to a free coaching call or get a free session? Can you get 30 days free? Something like that, right? Where you get a chance to really understand what the experience is like and decide whether or not this is going to be a fit before you make that big investment. Now, I wouldn't push this everywhere, right? Some programs are certainly more cost efficient, but maybe that's it. Maybe there's an entry level product that exists, and then you can see if you like that, if you're getting good value, then you can invest in kind of the larger deal, right? So those are the things that I will look out for, because if someone's not willing to provide you value at, let's call it $100 or less, then they're probably not going to be able to provide you a lot of value at $10,000. Like, you should be able to understand, like, hey, here's what I can give you at this cost, this price point, in this. The way I always look at it is my time, right? How much time, how much customization do you need? When it comes to that, you want someone who understands your unique situation. You want someone to sit down with you, provide white glove service to help you analyze your strengths, your deals, your market, and ask direct questions to and build a relationship with, quite frankly, right? You want someone who gets to know you and can help you thrive. There's a difference between coaching and mentoring. And I'm going to come back to that point. But if you want those things, then you need to find and ask those questions of what kind of program exists. We do offer coaching. If you want to check that out, you can go to our website, casmoncapital.com. We've got plenty of resources that you can go to, or just shoot me an email. We'll put all that in the notes here below. Now, when I talk about coaching versus mentoring, I think this is a really important distinction. When I think of mentoring is showing other people how to do what you've done, right? So I'm going to show you how to analyze a multifamily deal. I'm going to show you how I raise capital for my deals. I'm going to show you how I pitch an investment opportunity, right? So I can show you how to do what I've done. And that is being a mentor, right? I'm taking you under my wing. I'm showing you my processes. I'm showing you how I navigate the marketplace. Coaching is different because coaching takes the other person into consideration. This is not about me just showing you how to do what I've done, but it's helping you maximize your skill set, maximize your unique situation. You may be in a market that's vastly different from my market. You may have a completely different network than my network. You may have other advantages that I dreamed of having, especially starting out. So it's taking a look at that individual, your situation, your skill set, the opportunity that you have, and how you learn or what you excel at, and helping you maximize that. Think about it in sports terms, right? Like you take a guy like Phil Jackson, who's widely recognized as the greatest NBA coach of all time. And Phil Jackson won 6 rings with the Chicago Bulls and then came back around and won another 5 rings with the Lakers, right? It had 2 three-peats in there. So Phil Jackson is widely recognized as the greatest coach because he was able to do that with 2 different teams, 2 different superstars, and making that work. Here's the deal. You had a guy like Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, 2 vastly different personalities. You can't coach them the same way, right? He didn't show them, hey, here's what I did in the 70s when I played, right? Here's what I did in the 80s. No, he had to look at those individuals, figure out their unique skill set, figure out what motivates them, what triggers them, what gets them going, and what helps them focus and help them maximize that. In the documentary The Last Dance, he's sitting down and talking about his Bulls team with Jordan and Pippen and Dennis Rodman, who Dennis Rodman has a flair of personality way over top even back then. And the way he coached Dennis and the way he coached the rest of the team was just drastically different. He let Dennis go to Vegas in the middle of like an NBA playoff run, right? It's just crazy and insane what he did and how he did it, but he knew how to get that guy going. And I bring it back here to coaching because most people offer mentoring and they're going to show you how to do what they've done. And sometimes we do need coaching because you need someone who understands you and understands that I have a hard time talking to people. Okay. Well, if you have a hard time talking to people, I'm not going to ask you to sit in front of the camera like this and do what I'm doing, right? Maybe there are other ways to get in front of a potential investor network or to talk to brokers or to do whatever, right? Or maybe you need a partner, but it's to sit down and understand what makes you unique. What skill sets can we exploit for your favor so that you can go out there and ultimately achieve your goal? So if that's something you want to learn more about, talk about, check us out below. But more importantly, I hope you got some value out of this to make sure you don't get scammed, right? Because there are lots of people out there who are looking to part you from your money, and avoiding those scams is absolutely key. Again, there's lots of ways to lose money if you're trying to do it the right way. So we don't need to add any more complexity by having these scammers and other folks who have no intention of helping us out come into the fold. So you can avoid those scammers, lock in and get the right people around you. That's going to set you up down that pathway for success. I'm John Casmon here with Multifamily Insights and checking out our YouTube channel right here. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave us a comment below. We'll get active in the comment section, and I look forward to staying in touch with you. See you guys next week.